Hi everyone and welcome to Deep Geek Live. This is the latest in a series of live videos I've been doing looking at various characters in The Winds of Winter. What's going to happen to the characters that we know in the next book and also in Dream of Spring following on from that. So what I've got today, as I always do, is a whole series of questions from my patrons. I'm going to shape this conversation around the questions that my patrons have given me. I'm also going to try and pick up on as many different comments and questions as I can from the chat as we are going through. So just to set things up before we get into those questions, Melisandre in the books is currently at Castle Black. Now, the point that we're at is that she started out obviously with Stannis. She and Stannis came all the way up to the wall. They worked their way across. They sailed up to Eastwatch. They worked their way across. There was that battle against the wildlings, and then she and Stannis and Queen Selyse have set themselves up in Castle Black. Now, Stannis has headed off. He's gone off on this really quite long, rambling route all the way round to try and claim Winterfell. Now, so that's where he's at. He's a long way away. Melisandre, however, has stayed at Castle Black. And through this time, we've not had any POVs, point of view chapters from her until just this last book, when suddenly we had one. Out of the blue, we had a point of view chapter from Melisandre. And that is where we left it. So the situation at the Castle Black is, as we were talking about with Jon's sort of preview, Jon is killed. That's the last thing we see at Castle Black. Melisandre has seen visions of this. She warns him of knives in the dark. She warns him of skulls. She has visions of skulls around him, meaning death. So she's got visions of him dying. She also, intriguingly, when she looks into her flame, she gets these visions of Jon when she's searching for Azor Ahai. All she sees is snow, capitalized snow, Jon Snow. So she's still very much on Team Stannis, but she's getting a lot of visions about Jon. And now Jon is dead, and the question is what's going to happen next. So that's where we're at with Melisandre in the books. A few super chats just before I went on air. Victoria Gill saying, love your work. Hello from Australia. Hi, Australia. And I look forward to listening when I get home from work on Friday night. Hashtag ISOLife. Yeah, we're all feeling it. Maura Lee, thank you. Maura, you know how much I appreciate your support for this channel and for me personally, saying just a show of love and appreciation for all the fabulous content and amazing stories on both channels. For those who don't know, I have two channels. My second channel is called The Well-Told Tale. It's an audio narration channel. I read what I consider to be the finest science fiction and fantasy stories ever. I appreciate so much all that you are doing to keep us entertained during this time. You are the best and so very loved. Thank you, Maura. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I saw your questions on Patreon, and I'll get to them in a little bit. Stephen Kutipa, if that's how you pronounce it, apologies if that's not the right pronunciation, saying, love your channel so much. I have a question, unfortunately not pertaining to Mel. What do you think happened to Tyrek Lannister? Why was he never found dead or alive? This question has been on my mind for literal years. Okay, well, I will happily pick this one off before we move into Melisandre for the majority of this live stream. So in the books, the Lannisters aren't just this small family. On the show, if you watch the show, you probably think there's, I don't know, maybe half a dozen Lannisters. In the books, there are a lot of Lannisters. Tyrek Lannister is one of these. I don't think we actually ever get exactly what relation he is to the rest of the Lannisters, but he's just like some cousin. And he is there. He's a squire to Robert Baratheon, like Lancel Lannister is. And then when Myrcella is sent off, Myrcella Baratheon, who is obviously actually Jaime and Cersei's child, but everyone's pretending that she's Robert Baratheon's daughter. When she goes off to Dorne, then this whole procession of great people from the Red Keep head down, and they see her off, and then they head back. And when they head back, there's this riot. It's a riot about food shortages and all the rest of it. It was on the show. Tyrek Lannister wasn't really on the show. He disappears in this riot. It's a lot of people disappear in this riot. But obviously the Lannisters are very hot on, well, looking after their own, and where has this Lannister gone? And so for the next couple of books, you get various Lannisters, Tyrion, Jaime, wondering what happened, thinking perhaps Varys was somehow involved. Had he smuggled him away for some reason? What's going on there? So we don't get an answer in the books, is the short answer to this question. We do not have a categorical answer, and nor do we have enough evidence, and I'm really sorry about this, Stephen. We do not have enough evidence to be sure on what happened to him. He did disappear during those riots. Now, the obvious and boring answer is he just disappeared in the riots, and he got killed, and people saw that he was wearing nice clothing. Maybe he had a few gold rings on or something like that, and people took his body away, and then they just dumped it somewhere. That is entirely possible. In fact, it's the most likely solution. The conspiracy theory is that perhaps he knew something about Robert Baratheon. Varys kind of secreted him away somewhere. It's possible, but if he had information that was valuable, we've not heard what that is. And we haven't seen any hints from Varys or anyone else that this was the case. So until we get other information on this, I think we do have to accept the official line that Tyrek Lannister did just disappear in those riots. It's possible that later in the books we will get some more information on this, but George R.R. Martin simply has not given us any more to go on. So that's position, Stephen, and apologies it's not a more interesting and exciting answer on that one. Lost for Words. Hi there, Lost Words. Saying brown eyes, green eyes, and blue eyes. What do we say to the god of death? Yeah, so this is Melisandre, and we will come back to this. This is Melisandre's prophetic moment on the show, that she was there. She saw Arya way back in season whatever it was, 3 or something, and Melisandre sees her and sort of holds her chin, sort of says, brown eyes, green eyes, blue eyes, I see you closing them forever. And then at the very end, obviously, blue eyes. This is all about the Night King, and she is prompting Arya to go off and kill the Night King. So we will unpack this a lot more later, but I think the important point we have to remember here is that that scene, from the book's perspective, that scene where Melisandre meets Arya does not happen in the books. That is something that the showrunner, I think it was a good scene, and I think that they worked it through very well, but it did not happen in the books. No, and the decision that Arya was the one who kills the Night King is also, that's a decision the showrunners made. So if we're thinking about what happened in the books, that is not... yes, it's perhaps a hint that this is what's going on there, but we have had the most explicit confirmation out of anything that this was something that the showrunners themselves decided on. I think I had another. So Stephen Dillon, thank you for the super chat, saying, do you think Melisandre will be the point of view character at the Wall while Jon is dead? Yes, absolutely. So this is something, and again, I'll come back to this. I think one of my patrons' questions touches on this as well. George R.R. Martin operates, as we know, the books are written from different points of view. It's not just like this third-person narrative telling us what's going on. We only ever see it from people's perspectives. And if some plot is going to happen in a place that doesn't have a point of view character, then he has to introduce one somehow. Now, at the Wall, we had 2 point of view characters. We had Jon and we had Sam. Sam, as we know, has gone down to Old Town, so he's not there. So for a long time, all we had was John at the wall. That was his perspective, was all we saw about what was going on. If he didn't know something, then we didn't know something. But John obviously is going to die. He died at the end of the last book. Who's going to show us what's happening? George R. R. Martin has introduced another POV character. This is Melisandre. And so that is what is going on, is that he's introduced Melisandre as a POV character so that, I'm pretty sure on this, so that while John is dead, we have someone who can tell us what is going on at Castle Black, so that when he returns, it's not just like, oh, okay, where am I, what's going on? We have got an idea about what's going on. So yes, I think that we will carry on having POV chapters from Melisandre. I think so. Brenna Berman, thank you so much for the super sticker. Thank you. I very much appreciate this. Stephen Dillon, do you think we will get a Jane Poole and Melisandre interaction? Yes, I think we will. I have got a question on this one yet later, so I'll wrap that up in that, if that's okay. And I think I had another question in the chat. Hang on. Stephen Rocket saying, $5 to help you rock the quarantine hair. Don't cut it, own it. Well, thank you very much. We're still not allowed to go and get our hair cut in the UK, so I keep on being tempted to just get that. But no, I'm keeping it going until I can get it cut by a professional, it has to be said. Thank you so much. But I had another question. I'm sure I did. Yes, anime lover Nicole, thank you so much. Saying, I saw Carice Van Houten at a con, and she said that she liked her ending and that this is fitting. What are your thoughts on that? Okay, so I really liked her ending. I will say it. I know that this is a thing that a lot of people didn't like. That Melisandre, her ending on the show, I think was perfect. I think that absolutely summed up the ending of her character arc. The whole point of Melisandre's character is that all she's about is this fight against what she perceives as being the great other. It's the fight against the others, the White Walkers. It's identifying who the hero is, who's going to lead humanity against them. Her character arc ends when that fight ends. So yes, she will die when that ends. Now, the way that they did it on the show was that it's almost as if that's it. This spirit, this fire that had burned within her for so long, it had gone because her mission was complete. And so she could just go out into the snow and collapse. And I think that worked really well for me, at least visually. I think it looked very good. But also as a sort of a character arc. And I particularly like the fact that we saw this through Davos's eyes. And Davos was there. He hated what she did. She killed Shireen. This is, again, we're talking very much on the show, but she killed Shireen. And he wanted to kill her for what she did. And yet he could not deny the fact that all of the things that she'd done had helped to deliver the victory against the White Walkers. And that, I think, is why he just watched her die. He allowed that to happen. He didn't claim what he felt was his right, which was to kill her, because one part of him understood that, yes, she did horrific things, but she did do horrific things in order to achieve a greater good. He may or may not have agreed with that. He may have thought that the evil that she did outdid the good that she achieved, but he kind of let it go. And I think that was really important, both for her character arc and also for his. Davos is not a vengeful character, and I think that worked really well for me, it has to be said. So I also, Carice Van Houten, I would agree with her that I thought her ending was exactly right, I to say. Shade of the Evening, thank you so much. Saying, love you, Robert. Thank you. I'll be a patron again soon. Thank you very much. I entirely understand at this time everyone's facing lots of difficulties right now. The world is a crazy place. So I completely understand those who cannot support me on Patreon. And if you are a patron and you can't carry on your pledge, I completely understand that. So Shade of the Evening, thank you. I do completely understand, and I appreciate the fact that you will come back as soon as you can. So thank you. I very much appreciate that. I never assume that people can support me on Patreon. That's why I try and answer as many questions as I can from the chat as we go through. Alejandro Lopez, thank you, saying, hey Robert, love your live streams. Do you think Melisandre will feel remorse for Stannis' eventual death? Keep on rocking. Thank you. Will she feel remorse for his eventual death? I don't think so. I think that the whole point of her character is that she is driven by what she considers to be the greater good. That means that she will get to the, assuming that her side wins, and I think that we can assume that, she will think it's worth it. Everything that she's done, she will think is worth it. So she may be sad about it, but she is using Stannis. Let's not beat around the bush here. She is using Stannis because she thinks Stannis is the person that will deliver what she wants. So will she feel remorse? I don't think so. I don't think that's really who she is. I think that she is, and we will, again, we'll unpack this a little bit more, but in terms of Bloodraven, he is almost her opposite in terms of they both think that they are doing the greater good, and they are okay with the fact that there will be casualties along the way in order to achieve the greater good. The importance for the plot is the fact that what they both consider to be the greater good, although their end point might be the same, the way they're going to get there is going to be very different. So they will both create casualties because of their belief. George R. R. Martin, I've said it once, I've said it a million times, George R. R. Martin cares far more about the belief that people have in something and how that drives the action, far more than whether or not what they believe in is actually true. We're never going to see the gods. We're never going to have an absolute answer on who is Azor Ahai reborn. That's not going to happen in this story. What we are going to see is a very human story about how people react to their beliefs and what that means in terms of sort of moving forward the action. Melisandre's absolute fundamental belief in the fact that Stannis is Azor Ahai reborn is what drives this action forward for huge amounts of her plot. When she shifts, as I think she will, to believe that Jon is, that will also bring with it a whole series of these extra moments of volition and driving forward the plot that wouldn't be there if it weren't for her believing absolutely in what she thinks is right. Googly Woogly, hey, another one of the names that I love saying out loud, Googly Woogly, thank you. It's been a little while, but thank you so much for the super chat. Great topic. Do you think Melisandre and Davos will stand off over Shireen? Keep on deep diving. Right, so, yes, but I think, as on the show, Davos wasn't there when she did it. And in the books, Davos won't be there when she does it. Davos is hundreds of miles away. He was at White Harbor, now heading up to Skagos, trying to find Rickon, trying to bring him back to Winterfell. He is not going to find out what happened until he's got to Winterfell, and then Melisandre and Jon and all the rest get to Winterfell as well. And that's the point where he's going to find out. So he will... because he does, in the books, he does have this connection with Shireen as well as he did in the book, on the show. He will face down Melisandre. And I think that there's a good chance that, yes, that will be the cue for her to head back off to Essos and then come back. Now, on the show, her going to Essos and then coming back was just like she disappeared for a few episodes. I don't think that's going to be the case in the books. I think that if she goes back to Essos, it will be in order to go and collect something or someone or some help and then bring that back. She's not just going to wander off until the exact moment when she needs to suddenly appear again. That's not the way it's going to be happening. Looking more like a hobbit, apparently. Thank you, everyone, for your comments on my locks. It's a top knot, says somebody. It might happen. It might happen. I can nearly tie it back. It has to be said. Anyway, my hair is clearly far too distracting. I cannot wait to get it cut. I'm sure I had another question or two in the chat I was going to quickly pick up on. Yes, so Juanita Bryant saying Black and Blue Lives Matter. Yeah, so Black Lives Matter. I keep this live stream focused on non-real world events because I think that's what people need. I think that is what I can offer. I think I can offer somewhere where we can congregate and escape some of what's going on in the world just for a few moments and just take time to share an enjoyment of something we all love. But yeah, some things transcend that. So yeah, Black Lives do matter. Thank you. Voice of Geekdom, who has just launched a channel. Thank you so much for the super chat, but I will give you a quick plug now. If you don't know, Voice of Geekdom is somebody who's been around for a little while, has live streamed with Clueless Fangirl, Helena von Lunstein, who has the channel, and now has his own channel and has released an excellent first video about the Silmarillion. So if you're into the Lord of the Rings, if you'd like to support new channels, I would highly recommend you go and do that. Hopefully, if you're watching this live, one of the moderators can put a link in the chat there. Voice of Geek, thank you so much. We always see a cost associated with magic use in A Song of Ice and Fire. What do you think the cost is to the glamour she uses? Also, do you think she knows Makoro? Okay, two excellent questions. So yes, there's always a cost to magic within the world of A Song of Ice and Fire. We don't often see this with Melisandre. We don't often see the cost associated with what she does. We do a little bit in, and again, I've got a specific question about this in a little while, but in her point of view chapter, we do see that when she is looking in the flames, when she's getting a vision, she does bleed, she burns up inside, it hurts her. And it's almost as if she is taking the cost in herself. Sometimes she tries to get the cost from elsewhere. She tries to get sacrifices from Edric Storm or whoever. But a lot of the time, I suspect she takes the cost from in herself. And that is where it burns her up, and it burns up a huge amount of her. When I get onto my patrons' questions, some of the first couple are about what she is and what's going on with her. And I think this is a really important point, is the fact that she is bearing a lot of the cost in and of herself. Do you think she knows Makoro? Makoro is a book-only character. He's a red priest who is sent by the Great Temple to R'hllor over in Volantis. He is sent over to Daenerys to basically say she is the Azor Ahai Reborn. She is the Principal of the Promise. She's the promised one, and to go over and aid her. So he is there, who's going to be helping out Daenerys. She has gone rogue. This is the thing you have to remember about Melisandre. Because she's the only red priest we see for such a long time, we kind of think that she's representative of the whole. She's not. She is a rogue priest. She looked at all of these ancient texts and decided for herself who the prince that was promised was, and then went off to find them. She wasn't there off on a mission from the temple or anything like that. So that's where she's at. Does she know Moqorro? It's possible. We don't know the background to Moqorro at all. Basically, we haven't got the answer to that yet, but it would be fascinating when they, as they probably will, come into contact, whether or not they do actually know each other. The important point is not, though, I don't think that the extent of their previous understanding of each other is the main point. The point is that they will probably, almost certainly, be backing different horses in this. Moqorro is there backing Daenerys, and Melisandre is going to be backing Stannis to start with, but then almost certainly Jon afterwards. The Stark in Winterfell, thank you, saying, what do you make of the Melisandre and Bloodraven shared imagery, red and white, and their questionable actions for the greater good? Yeah, so I think we're being invited by George R. R. Martin to see these characters as quite similar. And another one is also Quaithe. They are the mentor figures to people who could be the prince that was promised, who could be Azor Ahai reborn. That is what is going on, and therefore we're being encouraged to see the similarities between these characters who are all there seeing or seeing themselves as having a higher purpose, as guiding someone, and being willing to accept small, potentially wrong or evil acts as being just necessary in order to achieve the greater good. So I think we're being encouraged to see these mentors as similar in some way. That, I think, is what is going on there. I don't think that they're trying to say that there's a particular link between Melisandre and Bloodraven, other than they are playing similar roles for different characters who may or may not be Azor Ahai. That is, I think, what we're being shown. Mod Mary 1, thank you for the super chat, saying Melisandre is said to be the most misunderstood character by George R. R. Martin. Melanie Lot 7, a slave from an early age. No children and a shy, so where from? Will she go to Volantis for help? Thanks. Yes, so this, and thank you for reminding me of this. So George R. R. Martin was asked, and I think, pardon me, just rearranging my seat. I think that this is a very astute question. Who is the most misunderstood character in Game of Thrones? And he said Melisandre. Now, we have to ask ourselves why. Why is she misunderstood? What is it that we think we understand about her, but we don't actually understand? Now, my conclusion is that this is the fact that she was seen, certainly when he was asked this question, when the TV show was on, she was seen as being this slightly a sinister character who would just doing what she wants, misguided, and all the rest of it. And I think that George R. R. Martin is saying, first of all, you've got her wrong in terms of what she is wanting to achieve. Melisandre thinks that she is saving the world. I think that is the misunderstanding, is that she's not just there as this kind of like mysterious woman just trying to achieve things that she wants. Melisandre absolutely, from the bottom of her heart, thinks that she is achieving the greatest thing that humanity could ever achieve. She thinks she is saving the world in what she does. And the things that happen are, in order to make that the case, yeah, okay, maybe they might be bad, she thinks, but it's all going to be worth it. It doesn't matter if I get the credit for it. It doesn't matter what people think about me. What I'm doing is so good and so important. And that, I think, is where the misunderstanding comes in, is that she is, she thinks that she is a purely good person who is doing stuff that nobody else perhaps will understand or is willing to grapple with, but she is willing to do that. In terms of the will she go to Volantis for help, yeah, I think she will. I think she will get chucked out in the same way, roughly, in the books. I think she will head over to Volantis, and I think that she will bring help back with her from the Red Priests. I think that this is the whole point of what they are about, is fighting against what they consider to be the Great Other. And I think that she is going to be able to go back and bring those people with her. Disputed Lands is there. Hi there, Amanda. Great to see you in the chat. I don't often, I can't spot everyone as they're going through. Sanrixian, thank you very much, saying, I demand a top knot. I'm not sure I've got quite enough yet for a top knot, but thank you so much. For those who do not know, Sanrixian is one of the many excellent artists we have in this community. I would big her up more than that, but I've done that on so many occasions. If you're watching this live, I'm sure one of the moderators will drop a link into the chat. The chat is getting quite distracted by my hair, so maybe I do need to do something with this. Anyway, Rhodey James, thank you so much for the super sticker. I very much appreciate that. Thank you very much. Vigstable, can you discuss your opinion of Melisandre inadvertently bringing Jon Snow back with blood magic as a result of Shireen's death? Yes, I will. Thank you for the super chat. I've got some questions on this. I'm going to wrap all of that one up in a moment, because this is, I think this is the big thing that Melisandre is going to be doing in the beginning half of the Winds of Winter. I think that this is all wrapped up together. I think that her killing of Shireen, her burning of Shireen, her bringing back of Jon. Let's not forget, Shireen has got King's blood. What her death, her sacrifice, will be powerful and will allow astonishing things to happen. And what more astonishing thing could there be than bringing Jon back? The question is whether or not it's intentional or not. But as I say, I will cover all of that in just one moment. Braxton Husky, thank you so much, saying, judging by how she values sacrifice and the magical nature of it, do you think she will sacrifice herself? And what do you think that sacrifice does? I think that she sees herself as being more important. So I don't think she's going to see herself as being the person who does the sacrifice until possibly the very end. But I think that she sees herself as uniquely able to understand what is going on. From her point of view chapter, we get so much stuff in that chapter. But one of the things that we get to understand is the fact that she thinks that she uniquely can understand the visions in the flames in a way that none of the rest of the priests of the Red God can. She thinks that she understands this. So she thinks that she's special. She thinks that she's better. She thinks that she's above all of this. Will she sacrifice herself? Not until the very end, if at all, in my humble opinion. I think that she probably will carry on, much like the show, until the very end. Ariel Winchester, thank you so much for the super sticker. I very much appreciate that. The Voice of Geekdom saying, thank you for the plug, glad you enjoyed it. I genuinely did. What I said on Twitter in reply to your message about your first video is that I wish my first video had been as good as yours was. So the only way is up from here, and that was an excellent start. So welcome to the world of content creation. It's fantastic to have you on board. John Webster Film, as we're talking about content creators, John Webster Film also has an excellent channel, creates some fantastic Lord of the Rings content, saying, from one Lord of the Rings super geek to another, thank you for the wonderful content, Robert. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you, John. I hugely appreciate that. Again, I'm sure one of the moderators will be able to put a link there. In terms of my Lord of the Rings content, I have got what I think is probably the best video I've done yet, not in terms of trying to play my own trumpet, but in terms of the length and the detail that I've gone into, I'm looking at the War of the Ring next, which is the war that is raging in the background of the Lord of the Rings. In the Lord of the Rings, you get this story. We get the story of people, which is fantastic. We get the story of Frodo and Sam, Merry, and Pippin, all of the Fellowship, and we follow them around. But in the background, there are battles raging. There's 3 huge armies on the march all over the place. There's a dozen or so battles that are happening. Some of them we see, some of them we don't see. And I'm just going to set out what happened in the actual War of the Rings. So that's where I'm going next with that. But as I say, John Webster Film does things with Lord of the Rings that I could only dream of. The man knows a huge amount. So thank you so much. I hugely appreciate that. Someone in the chat just said, so does this make Melisandre a tragic figure? I think that is an excellent point. I think that she is a tragic figure. I think that perhaps not in a standard way, but in a pure tragedy, classic tragedy, you get a character, you get a situation set up that means that you can see from quite early on where it's going to end. The end is inevitable. And that, I think, is what is going to happen with Melisandre, is that we can see that she is driven. She is only ever going to keep on pushing forward until the point where she gets to confront the others. And that is her inevitable end point. She has no drive beyond that. And so, yes, she is classically a tragic figure. I would highly argue there. So thank you for that. I think I had another one. Kenneth Hearn, thank you. That's a very generous super chat. Thank you so much. Saying, thank you, Robert, for all your insight and videos. Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's very kind. Thank you very much. And I think with that, I am caught up in the chat. So let me go over 2 questions from my patrons. Lady Pushkins says, do you think that she is dead and died by fire as a child in a magical ritual? And Daniel says, what do you think of the theory that Melisandre is a firewhite, not sleeping or eating, her eyes and how Lady Stoneheart's eyes both seem to be described similarly? Also, do you think firewhites, since they don't seem to eat or sleep, are immortal? Okay, so I said we pick up on this. Melisandre is described, and she describes herself in a number of ways that are very interesting and suspicious, let's put it that way. So she says that she doesn't need to eat. She says that she doesn't really sleep all that much. She doesn't feel cold. She doesn't really remember huge amounts about her past. She does get these kind of like random visions and thoughts about it. And she has lived for a very long time. So all of these things are quite reminiscent of, say, Beric Dondarrion, who is a firewhite. That's what George R. R. Martin refers to him as. Now, does this mean she is? Well, not necessarily. But I think that we really have just a couple of options here, because normal humans do need to eat. Normal humans do need to sleep. She is not a normal human. That much, I think, is clear. The 2 options are, firstly, she is a firewhite, which is a concept we're reasonably aware of because of Beric. And a lot of what he says is kind of reminiscent of what's happening there. The other option is that there's some other more specific thing going on to do with her religion. We talked about it a little bit earlier, about this idea that she has to have some sacrifice for the magic that she does. And that seems to come from within her. When we have her POV chapter, when she does look into the flames, she bleeds. She feels fire burning inside her. So maybe there is some other thing that we haven't yet completely understood about her magic, about how that operates. So I think those are the two options. I think the thing that we can be most clear about is that she's not a normal human. There's any idea that she's a normal human is, I think, done away with by that POV chapter. She doesn't do the things that normal humans do. And incidentally, also the zombie mountain, Robert Strong, down in King's Landing, we hear the exact same things about him. He doesn't sleep, he doesn't eat. These are the kinds of things that are going on there. So all the hints are that she is in some way undead. She is some sort of a fire wight, or there is something, another category that we've yet to understand fully. Bianca S, thank you so much, saying, hi, Robert, thank you for all that you do. You're very welcome. Your content got me into the books, and I love them. Have you ever considered to also put your live streams on Twitch? I think you would fit in so wonderfully. Well, first of all, in terms of getting you into the books, that makes me really happy. I love books, and these books are amazing books. And if by what I do that I can introduce people to the books, to this wonderful world, then that brings me great joy. So I'm very pleased about that. In terms of Twitch, I've thought about it. I have to say it's an extra world. It's something that I've never really truly explored. I think that there's still a bigger audience for this over here on YouTube, but I will happily look into it. If you're watching this a bit later and you are a Twitch person, I would actually be really interested to know that. So and let me know down in the comments if that's the case, and if you think that it's worth my while exploring it. But for the time being, I'm happy to carry on doing this here. But thank you. It's something I've thought about, but not seriously yet. So maybe today people will persuade me that I need to look at it more. And I think that's it again from the chat. Let's come back to Bonds saying Melisandre swapped Mance and the Lord of Bones without telling Stannis. Clearly Melisandre is not 100% on the side of Stannis. What do you think this indicates for the plot that Melisandre is playing out? Okay, so on the show, if you remember, then Mance Rayder was burned to death. In the books, everybody thinks that that's exactly what happened. Mance Rayder was burned to death. However, she swaps over people. So we get the Lord of Bones, who's this other character who dies, but she secretly saves Mance Rayder. And he then goes off down to Winterfell on this other mission. Now, what does this mean? The fact that Stannis doesn't know about this, I don't think this means that she's not 100% on the side of Stannis. I think what this means is that she is 100% on the side of thinking that she knows better. I think that she sees herself not just as a mentor figure, but as the person who sees the bigger picture and does all these kinds of things and is willing to sort of do things secretly behind Stannis's back, whatever, in order to achieve the ends that she wants to achieve. So that, for me, is the more logical conclusion. I don't think that she's deliberately trying to mislead Stannis because she has her own secret plot going on. We don't have any hints that that's what she's got going on. It's just that I think that she thinks she knows better. Henning J says, hi, Robert, thanks for the great content. Thank you so much. I enjoyed the recent joint discussion video with Aziz. Yeah, for those who missed that one, then I've got a series of videos that relatively recently started. I think I've done 6 now, called The Secrets of Westeros. And what I do is there's roughly an hour each time, a chat with another content creator, just chatting through some of the more mysterious or intriguing peoples or places in this world of ice and fire. And I've had, so I saw Disputed Lances in the chat. I had Amanda on talking about Old Valyria, which is a fantastic discussion. I think I also saw, or I might not have done, Joe Magician in the chat as well. If so, I had him on. Hi there, Matt. I had him on talking about the Faceless Men, and some other excellent content creators talking about other places. We had just this yesterday, in fact, I released my chat with Aziz from the History of Westeros, and we were looking at the Red Keep, which you may not think that it's particularly mysterious, but it is. There are a lot of secret corridors. There's a lot of mystery going on there. What's going on with the Iron Throne? Who knows their way in and out of the Red Keep? Why does that matter? Arya escaped there. Tyrion escaped there. Varys knows all the secrets. Who else might know all these secrets? Does this mean that as a castle it's actually quite porous? There's a lot going on there. So it was a fantastic discussion with Aziz, and I'm glad you really enjoyed that. And I've got 3 more lined up, at least 3 more. This was one of those things that I asked my patrons at $10 level. Patrons of mine get a chance every now and then to just tell me what they want me to be making videos about. And so I asked my patrons, I said, what do you want in this new series? What do you want me to be talking about? And they told me, and I'm going away and making videos about those things. So I'm glad you enjoyed the discussion with Aziz. My question, are Melisandre and Quaithe related in any way? It seems to me that these two are the only characters who hail originally from Asshai, so I wondered whether they might know each other and follow the same plan. Okay, so what I talked about earlier was this, the fact that we've got 3 mentor figures. We've got Bloodraven, who seems to be mentoring Jon. Jon probably not aware of this, but he's being championed by Bloodraven. We've got Melisandre, who seems to be championing and sort of mentoring Stannis. And we've also got Quaithe, who seems to be championing and mentoring Dany. Each of these people seem to think that their person is Azor Ahai Reborn, the principal promised, and is sort of magical and is giving advice and guidance and all the rest of it. So there is a link between these characters thematically, at the very least. In terms of Melisandre and Quaithe, yes, they both have links to Asshai. We do not know that Melisandre came initially from Asshai. We're told that Asshai doesn't, that children don't live there, they don't exist there. It's an incredibly mysterious place. So I think it's likely that she wasn't born there. And although she does know shadow binding and is known as of Asshai, I don't think that this necessarily means that she spent all her life there. I think she trained there. I think she learned stuff there. She does not have the lacquered mask that shadow binders who come from the Shadowlands, sort of north and east of Asshai, that they have. Quaithe does. That seems to imply that Quaithe comes from there, or at least that is where she's wanting to think that she came from. Now, so might they know each other? Possibly. Asshai is an odd place. It is a huge city. The footprint of the city is massive, bigger than, to say it's bigger than other cities. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of you could fit Karth and King's Landing and Old Town and a couple of other places all within it. And yet it's mostly deserted. And there are, I'm sure, many reasons for this, but that definitely means that you do not necessarily know everybody else in the city. This is a huge city. It's like saying just because, you come from London, do you know this other person from London? Well, probably not, because it's a massive city. That's the case with Shy. And I think that there is a danger for us in A Song of Ice and Fire in assuming that just because we hear two people coming from the same place, they must be connected in some way. This is where the whole Jack and Hagar and Syria Farrell kind of the same person idea came from, simply because to start with, they were the only two people we heard of who came from Bravos. Turns out Bravos is a huge city with lots of different groups and peoples and all the rest of it. So we wouldn't necessarily expect them to know each other or be connected in any way, shape, or form. George R. R. Martin creates a large universe. He doesn't generally try and contract it down to create a small universe by having everybody connected in with everybody else. I think we have to respect the fact that he wants a large universe. So do they know each other? Possibly, but I don't think there's no hint that they do. In any event, the point is that they have chosen different champions, so they're not on the same team here. Melisandre has decided that Stannis is the prince that was promised. Quaithe seems to have decided that Dany is the prince that was promised. And so they are on, although they're on the same team as a whole in terms of both wanting to be sort of confronting the others and the long night and all the rest of it, then they've got different understandings of who it is who is going to be leading that fight. So a couple of questions from the chat. Find them. Matt, the German magician is in the chat. Good to see you, Matt. Stephanie Spain saying, I've always wondered why Melisandre never had any visions of Dany's dragons or Daenerys herself. Well, we don't know that she hasn't, because we don't know all of her visions. But she's when she gets her visions, it's that we see this is in the context of either Dragonstone or at the Wall, and so it kind of makes sense that her visions focus on the people who are at those places. So why doesn't she see Daenerys? I think the other point I would try and emphasize is the fact that Melisandre is often wrong, and we shouldn't think that she's necessarily, she might have seen Daenerys but not known what she was looking at. She might have she saw Jon Snow. She says, I was searching for Azor Ahai Reborn and all I saw was snow. Jon Snow. She never seems for one moment to think, maybe that means he's the person I should be actually following. That's not where she's at. She has this idea in her head about what is right and all the rest of it. And that seems to blind her to an objective understanding of what her visions mean. So the short answer, Stephanie, is that she might have done, but if she had, I am absolutely convinced that she would have misinterpreted them. That the amount of visions that she misinterprets seems to outweigh the amount of visions that she interprets correctly by quite a large factor. Charles Carlson, thank you, saying thanks for giving us all hours of amazing content. Thank you, I really appreciate that. And I think I had one more. Elizabeth Claire, thank you so much, saying love and support to the entire fandom. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for all the amazing content. I can't keep up. Well, I've been trying my best to create as much as I can during this time. I know that this is quite a tough time on many levels for many of us. So I have been trying deliberately to be creating more as we go through, and I'm glad it's welcome. So there's a lot going on. Higa Herga, thank you. The other name that I love say so much. Higa Herga. Excellent as always. Thank you, Robert. Thank you. Carl Karsnark, 30 glasses on off reps. The count continues. Make that 31. Let's go to some questions from my patrons. How old, where are we at? Yes, so Leaf Underhill, how old do you think Melisandre actually is? So many speculations about her could be ruled out by her being too old or too young, if we knew. Yeah, absolutely. So we do not know how old she is. We know that she is very old. She thinks of herself as having lived for many years. So I think Carice von Houten herself said that she was playing her as if she were 400 years old. We're not told whether this was because she was told that was how old she is. But yeah, she could be very old. And I think the implications are that she is certainly a lot older than she looks, and possibly even a lot older than that. Again, this idea, I think, that we're supposed to be picking up on is these three characters, these mentor characters, these magical characters who are championing each of the three possible or main contenders to be Azor Ahai Reborn, Stannis, Jon, and Daenerys. They each are unnaturally old. I think that we will find that Quaithe is indeed unnaturally old in some way as well, and certainly Bloodraven is. He's had an extended life. Josh Davis, thank you so much for saying, just sending some money for the love of your channel. Keep up the good work. Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's very kind. Katie Smith connected to this saying, do you think Melisandre has a secret identity? I know there are a lot of theories that she's possibly a few other women from the overall story, but would love to hear your theory on this. My theory is no. I think she's who she says she is. In that chapter from Dust with Dragons, then her point of view chapter, she's having a vision, and then she sort of seems to slip back into sort of a memory, a vision of who she was, about being this Melanie Lot 7. Seems to imply that she was a slave at some point. Melisandre is, whether that's her full name or whether that's a name that she sort of took on afterwards, we don't know. But the clear implication is that she was a slave. The Church of the Law takes slaves on, so there's a fair chance that they took her as a slave, trained her up, and then she sort of went off and studied magic on her own. That seems to be what's hinted at here. That, I think, undermines this idea that she's any of these people that we hear about, like Shira Seastar or anything like that. I don't think there's much evidence for that. Certainly, if she were someone like Shira Seastar, who was a Targaryen and a magic user, that why on earth would she have memories of her being a child who was a slave? That's not who Shira Seastar was. She was not a child who was a slave. She was brought up in great luxury in King's Landing. So that doesn't seem to work for me. I think we often go hunting for this idea of who is this person really? Who are they behind all of this? Are they somebody in disguise? And we do that because George R. R. Martin does do this quite a lot. He has characters who are pretending to be other people. But that doesn't mean that everybody has to be somebody else. In fact, probably most people aren't somebody else. And I think that that's the case here. I think that Melisandre is not somebody else. I can't prove it completely, simply because we do not have the information. George R. R. Martin has not given the information. But the only information we do have, that she's very old, that she seems to have been a slave child at some point, that she spent a long, long time studying the ways of R'hllor, that she is a priest of R'hllor. This kind of seems to count out most of the other possibilities of who she could be, because none of them fit that bill. So the most likely conclusion is the fact that she actually is just Melisandre, a slave girl who was bought by the church, who then was had some magical abilities. She was trained up. She went rogue a little bit. She studied all the way back in Ashai. Then she decided that she thought she knew who the Prince of the Promised was, and went off and did it herself without being sent by the church leadership. That seems to be the most likely answer to who she is. Let's look for Ariel Winchester. Thank you so much, over on Patreon, saying, do you think her visions were telling her that the prince that was promised was the true king of Westeros? Maybe that's why she was so set on Stannis, because she thought he was the rightful heir and therefore also the prince that was promised, but when in reality it is Jon who is the rightful heir. I'm not sure on this one. Because she misinterprets so much, it's hard to understand what the actual thing was that she saw. So we don't ever get this bit of exposition from her that says, I decided this was Stannis because of X, Y, and Z. Now, the clear implication is that Dragonstone is where there are stone dragons, and bringing the stone dragons to life is part of the prophecy as we understand it. Clearly, Daenerys also fulfills that in some way by bringing stone dragon eggs to life. The fact that Stannis is there on Dragonstone with this salt and smoke. It's amidst the salt sea, and as an island, then it's basically built on a volcano, and there's these like smoky gases that sort of come up out of the ground, and it makes the whole place smell sulfurous and horrible. But that also seems to be this kind of like smoke and salt idea. And there's the red comet as well, and this seems to be where she got it from. And it seems to be less about the rightful king of Westeros and more about who she thinks fulfills prophecy. That seems to have been what drove her to Stannis in the first place. Is whether somebody is the rightful ruler of Westeros, is that a part of it? Well, probably, because, as I say, the three main candidates, or four if you're counting Aegon, all seem to have this claim to the throne, and certainly the prince that was promised implies that this is a prince or a princess. And yeah, so it's possible that that's where she was coming from, but I don't think that she was looking to see who is the true king of Westeros. That must be the prince that was promised. That doesn't seem to be where her sort of line of thinking went. Had a question in the chat from Delphi Morphia. Hi there. Saying, how Robert? Hi. Saying, late to the stream, apologies if this was covered earlier. Would you review how the Faith Militant came to power at King's Landing and how they interplay with the Faith of R'hllor in the books? Right, so the Faith Militant come to power largely as they did on the show. The Faith Militant have always been there, sort of lurking in the background. They were banned a long time ago because the Faith. Let's rewind this a little bit. Slight history lesson here. So, the Faith of the Seven was there well before the Targaryens arrived in Westeros, and they were the most powerful religion. the Targaryens came and took the throne. There wasn't a throne of the Seven Kingdoms before they came. They created this throne, but there was always going to be a tension. And if you read Fire and Blood, the book, Fire and Blood Part 1, you see it again and again and again. There's this tension between the Targaryens and the faith, because the Targaryens, they don't follow the faith. And some of the things they do are against the moral teachings of the faith, like polygamy, like incest, to pick two at random. Now, this meant that the faith, they were always slightly against the Targaryens. There was always this tension going on there. And sometimes this spilt over, I say sometimes 3 or 4 times, it spilt over into actual physical opposition. And the faith had the faith militants, the soldiers who fought on behalf of the faith. Now, these were banned eventually by the Targaryens, understandably, because they just wanted to have a state religion that didn't really have any power and would never really oppose them. So that was banned, and the idea was that by allowing them to sort of come back in, you could allow the faith militant once more. That would strengthen them in the Lannisters' power plays, Cersei's power plays against House Tyrell, Marjorie, and the like. So that is where this was all coming from. How does this interplay with the faith of R'hllor? The faith of R'hllor is largely an Essozi faith. We don't know the origins of it. Maybe I'll get into this a little bit later in the stream, but we don't know the exact origins of it. We can speculate, but we don't know the exact origins. But it's based in Essos. Now, what we discover is that there are, in port cities, there's sometimes in Westeros, you'll generally find a temple to the Lord of Light, but nothing big. State religion effectively is the faith of the Seven. So what we have here are a couple of religions that are opposite to each other in their beliefs, and the faith of R'hllor, the Lord of Light, they proselytize. They believe that they are right, everyone else is wrong, so they send off these missionaries. Now, when we get, for example, we get Thoros of Myr was sent as a missionary. That was the whole point of what he was about. He was sent as a missionary over to King's Landing to try and convert the king, because the king at the time, Aerys II, liked fire. And so the priest of R'hllor saw this opportunity and thought, hey, this guy likes fire, we like fire, let's see whether we can get him on side. Thoros failed, turned to drink, and he just all hung around during and became Robert Baratheon's drinking buddy. So that was there. So in terms of sort of the interplay of the two of them, they both think that the other is just a fake religion. That's what's going on there. Which I hope that was where you were trying to come from. A question from Stephen Dillon saying, do you think Alice Karstark as the gig is a misdirect? Not entirely sure I quite understand that question. Alice Karstark, well, we had her on the show. I don't think that she's not going to be hugely important in the books, other than in this political reality of what's going on in the north, of that she is there, and she will be the Karstark, I suspect, who will stay with Team Stark after the Boltons have gone, because the Karstarks are it's questionable whose side they're on. There's a lot going on. So I think that what we will see is Alice Karstark. She will probably take over at the end. The Girl in Grey, Kate Bertinsky. Thank you so much. Yes, so the Girl in Grey. This helpful. So Melisandre sees the Girl in Grey heading to Castle Black, and it's as Melisandre. This is in her flames. Yes, this is Karstark, but also will be Jane Poole, and she misinterprets these things, thinking that this is Arya Stark. Of course, Melisandre misinterprets these things, and she is trying to get in the good books of Jon Snow, thinking, well, if Arya Stark comes up, then he will be more brought back into the Stark idea. She is trying to get him to go down to Winterfell. That's the cunning plan that's happening there. And so if the Starks start returning, then that is much more likely to galvanize him, particularly given the fact that Arya Stark seems to have been, in the books, it wasn't Sansa Stark who was Ramsay Bolton's wife. It was somebody that everybody thought was Arya Stark. Actually, it was Jane Poole. But Melisandre got it all wrong. Yes, the short answer is yes, it is a misdirect. This is just another example of Melisandre getting things wrong. Let's go to questions about. Okay, let's do. Let's very quickly just say stuff that's coming up on the channel, because I always do this roughly halfway through. I've already talked about my Lord of the Rings content. I have got my next few videos on A Song of Ice and Fire I've got coming up will be ones working through Bloodraven, what Bloodraven's up to. So the next one will be what Bloodraven was doing with Howland Reed at the tourney at Harrenhal, setting up Rhaegar and Lyanna, what's his role going on there, and then we're going to work our way through right up to the present day within The Song of Ice and Fire. How is Bloodraven pulling the strings? This, if you know the channel, you know that this is one of the things I say a lot. If in doubt, blame Bloodraven. I say it because it's often true. Bloodraven does seem to be, in Westeros, the person who is pulling the strings from behind the scenes all the way through. And Bloodraven is the Weirwood Network now. Let's not mistake anything here. He was his own independent actor, but now he is effectively subsumed within that. So how is the Weirwood Network actually running all of this is the question. In terms of what's going on my second channel, The Well Told Tale, my audio narration channel, we're doing a couple of short stories. Probably my favorite science fiction writer is Philip K. Dick. We had a fantastic story from him last week, which was The Skull. If you've never read it, he's a brilliant short story writer. I'd highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite short stories, actually. So please do check that out. And now we've got an absolute classic. It's a two-part short story by Nathaniel Hawthorne called Rapuccini's Daughter, which is one of these ones where if you're not as deeply nerdy as I am about sort of the classic science fiction and fantasy stories, then you probably not heard of it. But Nathaniel Hawthorne was a fantastic writer. He wrote stuff like The Scarlet Letter, for example, and he wrote this story that is the inspiration for so much through the history of fantasy literature ever since, and even comic books. I think Poison Ivy, the character, how that, if you were writing that in this kind of like 19th century Italian city, what might that look like? That is the kind of feel we're going for. But the other thing I would say, because I always say it, because it's always true, patrons, thank you. I cannot do what I do without your support. I'm hugely grateful to you for your support. If you are interested in supporting this channel, then the best way to do that is through Patreon. If you're, there's a link down in the description if you're interested in doing that. If you want to get access to the audio of everything that I do, I also publish there all of the scripts for my videos. And at $10, the $10 level, then also you get both a mention in the description, which is down there, and also you get a chance every now and then to influence to tell me what it is that you would like me to make videos about next. So if that at all interests you, then please do go and check out the Patreon page, link down in the description. Question from the chat saying, Everett Aunt saying, will Melisandre sacrifice Shireen to bring Jon back? Yes. So there is, I've got a couple of quick questions. Guys, you're still talking about my hair. Misty306 saying, Robert is starting to look like a hobbit. I'm going to take that as a compliment. I love hobbits. Okay, so the question about Melisandre sacrificing Shireen to bring Jon back. I've got a lot of questions here from patrons. This is something that I think is central to our understanding of Melisandre, because it's the thing that we talk about as the example of what she's about. She's doing clearly terrible thing, killing a child, but she thinks she's doing it for the greater good. So I've got a couple of questions from Anime Lover Nicole saying, how do you think Melisandre is going to burn Shireen? Julia Erickson says, if Melisandre burns Shireen in the books, how do you think Patchface will react? JB1K saying, Queen Selyse and her queensmen seem to follow Melisandre nearly without question. Do you think Jon's resurrection might lead Melisandre to proclaim him as the true Azor Ahai? Will Stannis' own wife and his soldiers there abandon him? And also a couple of questions. Lawnduck20 says, if Melisandre burns Shireen, whether to resurrect Jon or to clear the snows for Stannis, what do you think those still at Castle Black will say or do in response? And also Lady Pushkin says, this is so exciting. One of my favorite characters. What do you think Melisandre's motive will be for resurrecting Jon, if indeed she does, as she hasn't abandoned Stannis yet? Okay, I'm going to wrap all of these up. And I'm going to say what I think is going to happen. So we know pretty certainly that Melisandre will burn Shireen. We know this because this was one of the things that the showrunners said, that George R. R. Martin, when they talked to George R. R. Martin, there were 3 plot twists they didn't see coming that really shook them. These big pivotal moments. We know one of them was Hodor. This was the second one. The third one, I don't think, I mean, I've heard a lot of people in the chat, I said this last week actually in the chat, a lot of people said that they think that the showrunners have confirmed what the third one is. I'm still not 100% sure I've seen them categorically say what this is. But anyway, the point here is that one of these 3 things, which is locked in for the book, I think, is that Melisandre will burn Shireen. Now, they are together at Castle Black. It's different to how it was on the show, because on the show, they were down in this encampment outside Winterfell, and Stannis couldn't get to Winterfell because of the snow, and so Melisandre, she burned Shireen, the snow's melted, and they got through to fight the battle, but they lost the battle. That was basically what happened. It won't be the same in the books because they are a long way from each other. Winterfell and Castle Black in the winter, it's a very long journey. Added to which, a lot of Stannis' battle plans seems to be dependent on there being snow. Holes in the ice, snow covering things up, and all the rest of it. This seems to be actually, he seems to want the snow. He seems to like this and has factored it in. So I don't think that even if Melisandre could see what was going on, he would welcome her doing things to be melting the snow. But she will burn Shireen. She's got history on this. She was tried to burn Edric Storm, who was one of Robert Baratheon's bastard children. Davos stopped that from happening. So we know that she wants to do this. And clearly this will only be in order to try and do something big and impressive. So the question is, what? Now, a lot of things are all coming together at Castle Black at this point. Now, Jon Snow is dead. He is almost certainly, all of the foreshadowing in his last chapter was that his body is going to be put in the ice cells. So that is going to be completely frozen. And it will need to be defrosted, which will need a fire of some kind, just in order for him to be brought back into his body. His spirit will almost certainly go into ghost. Now, so the question is, what will happen to his body? Are they just going to leave it there? Will they burn it? Obviously, they will probably want to burn it at some point. Melisandre will probably want to get to Winterfell at some point, so she will probably want to clear the way. So yes, maybe that is what it is, trying to get people down to Winterfell. That was what Jon Snow was wanting to do before he died. He wanted to take a force of people down to Winterfell to confront Ramsay. So it could happen in a number of different ways, but Melisandre, without Jon's tempering influence and with a lot of other people who are very happy for Shireen to die, who are absolutely loyal to Melisandre, are there, then it suddenly creates the conditions where she could kill Shireen. Now, also, if we've got a big fire, maybe that's the time they're going to be thawing out Jon's body. Maybe that is also, they decide that they're going to destroy his body because maybe he's been dead for some time. Maybe Jane Poole, who everybody thinks is Arya, comes up to and has been told by Theon that she, no matter what happens, she has to keep on telling people that she is Arya. When she arrives at the wall and sees Jon Snow's dead body, she will be the person, I'm sure, they will ask, what should we do with this? And she would probably say, burn it. Now, does this mean then that Jon's body will be attempted to be burned and Shireen's at the same time to create this hugely magical effect sacrifice? We know sacrifice is hugely important for creating magic. I think it's entirely possible. I think it's very possible that we get Jon being born. He was in ice and is born back through fire, having this great symbolic moment. But while that is happening, Shireen is being killed by Melisandre because she is trying to clear the way for people to go from Castle Black down to Winterfell. That seems to me the most logical chain of events that we've got going on there. Melisandre decides that she sees Stannis struggling down at Winterfell. She knows he wants to get people to go down there to him. She wants to clear the way. People are egging her on to kill Melisandre, to kill Shireen. Val is very suspicious of Shireen because of the grayscale, and also Jon needs to be burnt. So all of these things seem to work together for me, for there being some kind of sacrifice going on. So hopefully that answers all of these questions about what is likely to be going on there. We've got Stephanie Spain, thank you so much, saying for the super chat, saying would love to see Talking Thrones on a live chat. You both have great ideas. Thank you. Yeah, I'll get in contact with him, see whether we can organize something. Eric Forg, probably mispronounced your name, apologies, saying what is the role of grayscale going forward? Assuming Melisandre burns Shireen, does that release a contagion on the wall, particularly in the light of Val's comments, or is Chekhov's grayscale more likely to impact the Fagon John Conn storyline? Yes, so Shireen has got grayscale, but it was paused, basically, is the best answer that we have for what happened there. Stannis got huge amounts of magic users and physicians and all the rest of it, and something worked. Has grayscale over part of her face, but it's no longer advancing. It's in my view, this is actually George R. R. Martin just planting the idea early on that grayscale is a big and important thing. We don't see it in huge detail until we get to the Shy Maid, the boat heading through the Sorrows, and John Connington contracting it himself. So I think that Shireen's role with grayscale is to introduce the concept early on, so this isn't some massive surprise, some new thing. When John Connington catches it, we understand what's going on there, we understand what might happen, and so she is not actually, the fact that she's got grayscale, or she had grayscale, is not really the issue here. It's that she is hinting at and showing us what will happen to other people, which will be more important. And I think that the epidemic of the Grey Plague is going to be down in King's Landing rather than up at Castle Black. Now, the other question you asked there, Eric, was what happens when Justin Massey reaches the wall, particularly if Shireen is burned, in the light of Stannis' instructions to place Shireen on the Iron Throne. So Justin Massey is the knight that Stannis entrusts Jane Poole to, and also Tycho Nestoris, who's the banker from the Iron Bank. They're going to go up to Castle Black, drop off Jane Poole, who everyone thinks is Arya Stark, and then he's going to head off over to Braavos, collect a whole load of money from the Iron Bank, hire some sellswords, and then come back to Westeros. That's the plan, and Stannis does. This is in the pre-release chapter from the Winds of Winter. It's the Theon chapter, where we see Stannis talking to lots of different people. Stannis is very clear that if he dies, or if rumors are that he dies, then Justin Massey's got to carry on doing what he got told anyway, and Shireen is the next heir after him. So what happens? Well, I think the important thing, first of all, is what happens when fake Arya, this is, Jane Poole arrives, and I think that she gets dropped off and she gets to decide what happens with Jon Snow's body. I think Justin Massey heads on. I suspect that he heads over to Essos, and all the drama with news of Stannis' death, if that does happen at that point, it's quite likely, but we don't know for sure. And what happens with Shireen happens after he has departed Castle Black, after he's headed off to Essos to complete his mission. So I don't think he's going to arrive in order to see Shireen's death. Lady Pushkin's in the chat saying, why will Melisandre realize that Jon is the prince that was promised? So if Melisandre, she gets everything wrong, but I think at some point she will have to realize what's going on. Now, if Stannis dies, if she sees Jon reborn from the dead out of a fire, if she looks back and realizes that every time she was searching for Azor Ahai reborn in her flames, she sees pictures of Jon Snow, I think eventually she will put two and two together and come to the conclusion that Jon is the prince that was promised, and she just got it wrong first time. I'm sure she will come up with some clever way of trying to pretend that this was all part of her big plan and all the rest of it, but that, I think, is how it's going to be there. Lady Pushkin's also, actually, you asked a question over on Patreon saying, why did she bleed during one of her visions? So yes, we see Melisandre bleeding when she has her vision in her point of view chapter. Now, this I think that what we're seeing is a couple of things. First of all, everything, as we've already said, every bit of magic has to come at a cost. And she is bleeding, but it's described in a really odd way. It's not. It's burning black. I can't remember the exact words, but it's not like just normal bleeding. It's between her legs, and it seems to be burning black stuff, kind of reminiscent of the Shadow Baby. Also, she gets this kind of burning sensation within her. So the implication is that doing the magic is costing within her soul. She's burning up inside somehow. The shadows within her are bubbling and boiling. It's not a nice image, but that seems to be what's going on there. There is a hint, possibly, that when that was immediately after she saw Bloodraven in her vision. She doesn't know it's a Bloodraven, but she does see Bloodraven. And he seems to see her. So it's almost like he intercepts her seeing him. So maybe he pushes back in a magical way. There's a few different options, but I think the most likely one, given the fact that she doesn't comment on it, I think that this isn't a particular attack. I think the most likely one is this is just the cost of her doing her magic. Kyle99 asks, what do you think Mel's true appearance will look like in the books? There have been theories that she's related to Bloodraven, perhaps an albino. I wonder what item on her dictated her current look. I don't know. I think the fact is that she's just going to be old. She is very old. She's probably hundreds of years old. I think the show got that bit right. So that's, I think, just her pure appearance. Is she related to Bloodraven? Personally, I think not. I think the person who is related to Bloodraven is Shira Seastar, and I think that is much more likely to be Quaithe than it is Melisandre, for the reasons I gave slightly earlier. Melisandre is not the only bits of information we have about her background are not being raised in King's Landing related to the Targaryens, anything like that. That's not where she seems to be coming from. So no, this idea of her being related to Bloodraven doesn't seem to be likely. In terms of the item on her, so she's got the necklace, she's got the red ruby. Rubies are their magical power, seems to be to do with glamours. That's what it is. It's to give somebody a different appearance. Leila Agushi says, does the religion of R'hllor have roots in Valyria? I've never been clear on this. The Red Priests are mentioned very early in A Game of Thrones as Daenerys hears them lighting their fires, so I've always wondered if there are links. Well, we don't know is the short answer. So we're not told the exact origin of them. It's possible, given the fact that they seem to be very connected in with this idea of fire and ice, oppositional forces, the Lord of Light against the Great Other. It's possible that their origins go all the way back to the first Long Night. That seems to be what's hinted at somewhere over in Essos. Now, what seems to have been the case, the link to Valyria, seems to be that they were, whether the Valyrians did this deliberately or not, they were the religion, it was the religion of the underclasses. And we see this very much in Volantis. So Volantis was slightly underplayed on the show, but in the books, this is a huge city, very important. And it is about ready for revolution. The people, Tyrion goes wandering through the great temple that's there, and he just sees the people who are just like being whipped up into a fervor, and he just thinks there's something that's going to blow up here at some point. They're just outside the city, the Black Walls of Atlantis. Within the Black Walls of Atlantis, that's where all of the sort of the old aristocracy are, the ruling classes, the slave owners, and all the rest of it. Outside, that's where everyone else lives. And this is the faith of the outsiders. This is the faith of the lower classes. This is the faith of the slaves. Now, that, yes, there is clearly a connection across with Valyrians in terms of fire and all the rest of it, but the Valyrians don't seem to have this strong link across with the legends of the First Long Night or anything like that. We've not had those hints. So what seems likely is that this started millennia ago, following on from somewhere out in Essos, following on from the First Long Night, the myths that surrounded that, turned itself into a religion. By the time the Valyrians were in charge of most of the continent, then this was not the religion of the powerful, because the Valyrians had their own religion, but this was the religion of the masses. So that seems to have been the broad history of it. We don't have all of that detail, but that seems to be what we can kind of pick our way through to understanding. Maura Elise asks, what will Melisandre's role down south in King's Landing be? There are several contenders for the Iron Throne, including Euron, Fake Aegon, Dany, etc. If anything happens to Stannis as a character, do you see her then willing to back up any of these other ones that I have named? What about Jon Snow? I don't think Melisandre cares about who's the actual king. That she's not given that that hint. Yes, she sort of backed Stannis, and Stannis was very fixated on him having to be the king. She went along with it, and she was very willing to support that because, you know, if this is what Azor Ahai Reborn is doing, becoming the king of the Seven Kingdoms, having all of the armies at their disposal, yes, obviously that's a no-brainer. Of course, you would do that. But she seemed equally happy to be going north with him. And the moment that Davos points out, actually, this is where the real battle is, she was very happy to do that. Now she's discovered where the real battle is, where the others are. I suspect that she's not going to care two hoots about actually who sits on the Iron Throne. So I don't think that she's going to be backing anyone in particular for it. I think that she's going to be focused in on how do we actually win this battle that we're trying to win. Do you think, Lady Pushkin says, do you think it's possible that the ruby she wears in her necklace is from Rhaegar's breastplate? So Rhaegar had, and this is the start of all kinds of conspiracies, because I've said rubies, the magical property of rubies is that they are good for glamoring. They're good for disguising appearance, making one person look like someone else. What we know from Rhaegar is that when he went to the Battle of the Trident, when he was killed, he had this black armor with red dragon dotted on his breastplate, dotted out in rubies. And the visualization that we have is that when Robert Baratheon's Warhammer came down and caved in his chest, these rubies were scattered all over the place, and people went hunting around trying to find these rubies, and some of them washed up on the Quiet Isle and all the rest of it. So there's a lot of mythology around this idea of the rubies that were on Rhaegar's breastplate. Might one of them have ended up with Melisandre? Possibly, but there's no link there. There's nothing to say that there's a link between Rhaegar and Melisandre. She doesn't seem to think that line, the Targaryen line there, is the rightful kings of Westeros. That's where the Azor Ahai Reborn comes from. That doesn't seem to be her thinking. Her thinking is that this is Stannis. So there's no link there. Possibly, but there's no evidence that is the case. Diego Godoy, thank you so much, saying, hi Robert, do you think that when Jon gets revived, he might wear a ruby, as Melisandre does, to hide her decrepit body? Also regarding Arya, given that she is a faceless man, and they fully believe in Valar Morghulis, all men must die, do you think Melisandre and Jon's undead states will play a role when Arya encounters them again? So the first part of that is, will John wear a ruby to hide his body? I don't think so. I think that John will be okay with what his body looks like, but the point is that his body's going to be frozen, and then it'll be warmed up again, and then his spirit's going to go back into it. So yes, it might look battered and not great, but the fact that it was almost immediately frozen because the temperatures up at the wall are freezing, I think that will mean that it will be preserved quite well. So I don't think that he will have a need to be particularly glamoured up to look better, and I don't think that he's the kind of character who cares that much. I think that he won't particularly want to have a glamour. In terms of Arya being a faceless man, they believe Vala Morghulis, all men must die. So this is a really interesting point, because I've said, actually, on the Secrets of Westeros, when I did the one with Joe Magician, we were talking about the faceless men. One of the things that I'm very strong on when it comes to the faceless men is that these phrases we have, all men must serve, all men must die, they're not just cool catchphrases. This is a religion. Faceless men are a religion, and these are the tenets of their faith, and they fundamentally believe that all men must die. That is where they come from. They think that that's why if people come there for an easy death by sort of drinking the poisonous water, or if somebody pays them to kill somebody else, that is actually that's the natural order of things, because everyone has to die eventually, and they therefore will see the prevention of death as being heresy. So I would definitely agree with that part of it. Aya, however, is going to break free from them, and she's not going to be this absolute acolyte of the faceless men. The whole point of what we seem to have been seeing with her chapters in Bravos is that the faceless men are trying to teach her and train her, but she cannot let go of her identity as a Stark, and that is what is going to bring her back to Westeros in the end. So she is not there with this kind of cult-like belief that all men must die. So when she meets Melisandre and Jon, yes, it's going to be a little bit weird. But Melisandre is never like, oh, well, I'm undead. That's not why. She doesn't come out saying that. She hides everything. So Arya's not going to immediately go, oh, okay, fair enough, you're according to the cult that I was in, you're a heresy. Similarly with Jon, although, yes, everybody will say he died and came back, Arya will understand that actually what happened was that he went into his direwolf and then went back into his body. She has had wolf dreams for years now. She understands. She will understand that. And she's always had this affinity with Jon. So I do not think that what we're going to see is that her coming into some kind of contention with Jon because of the fact that he's undead or a fire white or whatever white he is. Question from Jigs M, saying, in the show, Melisandre is really old. Do you think this is the same in the books? Could she have witnessed the last Targaryen dragons or even Valyria? I'm wondering if there might be a parallel to Bloodraven, who is also, was also very old. While Melisandre is pulling the strings on behalf of the Red God, Bloodraven equals ice, Melisandre equals fire. Yeah, I've sort of covered this off quite a little bit already. Yes, they're both these kind of mentor characters, these magical mentors to who they think is Azor Ahai reborn. And to a degree, yes, Bloodraven is the sort of more icy side of this, and she's the more fire side of this, but I don't think it's that clear cut, because Bloodraven is not just ice, he is half Targaryen. And that is the whole crux of where he comes from is the fact that he's got this fire side, but he's also got this ice side. He's half First Men blood, as well as being half Targaryen, Valyrian blood. So he's not pure ice. Melisandre, although she may indeed be pure fire, I don't think that that's thematically oppositional. There are, I would agree, a lot of similarities between them and opportunities for us to look at different ways that these actually quite similar characters operate, but I would see it more as a kind of a triumvirate. You get Melisandre, you get Bloodraven, you get Quaithe, all having this same broad approach, this desire to mentor somebody that they think is Azor Ahai reborn, all thinking that they know better, but all perhaps slightly misguided in their own ways. Bonds asks, do you think that fake Lightbringer being carried by Stannis is a glamour, being that it has a ruby in the hilt? If Maester Aemon can see that the sword is a fake, not a glamour, surely Melisandre would realize as well. If so, do you think this means that Mel is playing with Stannis, knowing he is not really Azor Ahai? Okay, so we get sorry, just a very quick question. Random Bolly saying, asking whether Winds of Winter will be released in July, August 2020. George R. R. Martin is still writing it. I don't think it's going to be released next month. No, I think we will see the paperback, softback of Fire and Blood first, perhaps this summer. It's possible that we will see towards the end of the year in November-ish the Winds of Winter, but I don't think we're going to see it before that. But in terms of fake Lightbringer, so Lightbringer is this idea, this is the fiery sword that Azor Ahai had, and so Melisandre tries to prove that Stannis is Azor Ahai reborn by him drawing out this fiery sword and saying, this is it. Now, Maester Aemon sees through this because he asks to see it. Yes, he's blind, but he gets Sam to say what he can see. And the Aemon says to Sam, did it feel hot? Sam says, no, it didn't feel hot, but yes, it glowed and it had kind of fiery stuff going on around it. And Aemon said, well, no, that's not Lightbringer, basically. So it is fake. I think Melisandre knows that it's fake, but she is very open in her POV chapter that she is, she sees these kind of things as actually, yes, they're deceiving people, but they're for the greater good, because she has to try and show and inspire confidence in something. And that's a physical thing that she could do that could inspire confidence in Stannis. Does this mean that she's playing with Stannis, knowing he's not really Azor Ahai? No, I think that she thinks that she thinks that he is Azor Ahai reborn, but she thinks that she has to prove to everyone else. And this is one of the ways that she's using in order to do that. So I think that's what the dynamic is going on there. And Bonzi also said, asked as a follow-up, why does Melisandre pay such attention to Sam when the potential new Lord Commanders are meeting with Stannis? You know why I think she does. Is there a book reason to disprove my theory? I know, Bonzi, your theory that Sam is a lot more important in the books than he is on the show. And has a lot more important parentage. I think that the reason why I would have to reread that section, I have to say, to give a full answer on to this, but why Melisandre will be paying attention to Sam, because Sam was the person who decided that it would be Jon. It should be Jon. He put Jon forward in order to be the next Lord Commander, and so Melisandre probably saw something of that, and that is why she's paying attention to him, not because that was the matter at hand at the time, not anything else. She had plenty of other opportunities to see Sam. This was the only time that she was really paying much attention. Stephen Dillon saying, what do you think of the theory of Mel glamoured Tormund as John, and he was the one they stabbed? I don't think it's likely, but want to hear your thoughts. No, I don't think this is right. The main reason is that we see this from John's perspective. We don't see it from Tormund's perspective. We see it from John's perspective. We see what's going on in his mind. We see that he's going out there. We see the people approaching him. We feel them stabbing him. This is all from John's perspective, not Tormund's. So, no, I don't think that that's the case. And I think that all of the foreshadowing leading up to it is that John was going to die. That it doesn't make any sense to me from a plot perspective either that Melisandre played that kind of trick. Morley asks, will Melisandre play a role in the battle with the others like she did in the show? If so, what do you think her main role will be? Yes, so she's not going to play the exact same role, I don't think. She, in as much as on the show, basically she was that her role was to get Arya to kill the Night King. Arya killing the Night King is not what's going to happen in the books because the Night King doesn't exist. Maybe we will find out about him, but as it stands, he doesn't exist. And the showrunners were very open that it was their decision that Arya killed him. So that's not what's going to happen. However, I think that she will come back and join this fight because that's clearly what is the end point of everything. But I think that she will try and bring with her all of the might of law across. I think that that's why she will head back to Essos, and then she will return with whatever she can get hold of, because this is the whole point of what that religion was about. Is that it's there to oppose the great other, or who they see as the great other. So if they were ever going to amass an army and head over to Westeros, that's the point at which they will do it. Catherine Furseth saying, Melisandre is for me a very different character to most others in the books. Where the others are grey people who experience dilemmas and we can analyse their psychology, she is quite different. Her personality seems to be erased to a large degree, perhaps by the sheer weight of the years she's lived, and also by being such a magical creature, meaning living mostly through her visions, using magic, etc. Does she have any life and desires left that are truly hers, or is hers just a shadow existence? Well, I think what... And this is another one of these kind of hints that maybe she is a Firewhite. What we got from Beric was this idea that every time he was brought back, he lost a little bit more of himself. He lost a love for food. He lost a memory of what his love looked like, and even her name. He lost a bit more of himself every time. And with Melisandre, she doesn't seem to have, you're right, she doesn't seem to have those other drives and interests and all the rest of it. It seems very focused in on this one thing that she's trying to do. I think she is a grey character in the sense that she is very driven and very focused on trying to do what I think most people in that world would consider to be the right thing, which is stopping the others. However, she is trying to do it in a way that most people would see as the wrong way. And that is what makes her slightly more complicated. If not grey, then lots of shades and layers of black and white. So that I think is the case. In terms of what is left of her life and desires, we don't really see it. She does seem to be this sort of a husk. Yes, there are some hints there of things that she enjoys or doesn't enjoy, but basically she is just this very focused person trying to do the thing that we know she's trying to do. Question from the second sister. Let me just take. Actually, I've got this. I've got 3 more questions from my patrons. So now is a good time to drop any further questions into the chat. I will try and get to as many of them as I possibly can. David Benioff in the chat saying, thank you for the stream, Robert. I assume that's not the real David Benioff, but thank you. Second sister says, hi, Robert. Hope you're well. I love the character of Melisandre and the actress Carice van Houten, who is also a Dutchie. Yes, she's Dutch. Do you think, and she did excellent, I have to say. I think she was fantastic bit of casting. Do you think we'll get a Melisandre POV chapter in the Winds of Winter? Yes, definitely. I said that I gave my reasons for this earlier, but basically she is now, with John gone, she is, for the first part of that book, she is going to be our eyes and ears in Castle Black, so we see what's going on. I also have a somewhat more out there question. Will Melisandre blow the dragon horn? In her chapter, it says, food, yes, I should eat. Some days she forgot. R'hllor provided her with all the nourishment her body needed, but that was something best concealed from mortal men. And then Makoro says that, which I should probably say, adds to this idea that maybe she's A, not mortal, and B, perhaps some kind of fire white or something not normally human. Makoro, who's this other red priest, says that the writing on Dragonbinder says, no mortal man shall sound me and live. And later, blood for fire, fire for blood. Melisandre is clearly no mortal man, but she does have a liking for sacrifice and fire. In the series, she went to Essos for some unclear reason. Could this be why? Okay, so the writing on Dragonbinder saying, no mortal man shall sound me and live. This is very clear, I think, that the kind of loophole that George R. R. Martin loves is that no mortal man, well, what about an immortal woman? This does resound, and I'm always looking for these links across to the Lord of the Rings, because George R. R. Martin loves the Lord of the Rings, and he does deliberately give homages and nods to fiction that he loves. We get this prophecy about the Witch King of Angmar, who is the head of the Ringwraiths, that Glorfindel the elf, he says, he shall not beat his end by any hand of men, I think, was, or words to that effect. And then, obviously, he doesn't meet his end by the hand of a man, but by Eowyn, the daughter of King of Rohan. So that is what sort of the nod that is there. George R. R. Martin has used this kind of idea already, that the prince that was promised, perhaps it might be a princess. He does like this idea that, we have gender inclusive language, and if you misinterpret it, that is actually your disadvantage. So that's entirely possible that this is some sort of hint. Does this mean that she will blow that horn? It's possible. I love the idea. I love the thinking. I'd not made the connection myself before that. But I'd thought more that this was hinting that maybe Daenerys as a woman might get to blow the horn herself. So is the fact that she went to Essos for some unclear reason? Yes, I think that this is very clear that in the books she will go for a reason. She won't just disappear and then reappear again at the final moments. She will go to Essos for something and then return with something. I don't think it's going to be Dragonbinder. I think it's going to be something connected with the faith of R'hllor. I think that she's going to bring people back. Question from Purple Feline saying, happy Thursday, Robert. Happy Thursday back to you. Will Melisandre meet Arya again? And could Arya kill her? Also, when Dany arrives in Westeros, do you think Melisandre will change her mind regarding who is Azor Ahai? And where do you think her real powers come from, R'hllor or shadow binding? Okay, a few questions there. I will rattle off some quick answers there. Will Melisandre meet Arya again? They haven't met in the books. On the show, they did. There was that great scene with Melisandre, who sort of like grabs her by the chin and sort of talks about all those different color eyes that she's going to close for good. That doesn't happen in the books because Melisandre doesn't have to go and find Gendry. She's got Edric Storm, who's the person that she's wanting to sacrifice. So that scene doesn't happen, which clearly implies that the great reunion will not happen between the two of them. What that scene seems to be sort of conflating the Melisandre getting Edric Storm and also the Ghost of High Heart in the books, who, when Arya appears, the Ghost of High Heart basically says, "Go away. You've got too much blood in your future, too much death in your future. I gorged on grief at Summerhall." She says, "I don't need any more," because she senses that Arya is going to be bringing death with her. And that is the kind of the feel that Melisandre is conveying, is that Arya, although at the time she doesn't know it, she will bring huge amounts of death with her. So that's the kind of the feel that's going on there. Will Melisandre change her mind when Dany arrives? I don't think so. I think that she will change her mind once, and that is from Stannis to Jon, because she has been already seeing Jon in her flames, and because I think that she will see him reborn, and I think that will persuade her when Stannis dies. And Maura Lee saying, how do you see Melisandre's end in the books versus how she died on the show? Will it be similar or different than how she died on the show? The short answer, I think, is it's going to be similar. It probably won't be exactly the same, but it's going to be similar. We have, I talked about this a little bit ago, but the whole point of Melisandre's arc, the whole point of her character, is that she is building up to her role in the ending of the Long Night. That is the whole point of what her character is about. She is all about identifying who is this hero, who is going to be taking on the others, how can they be equipped to do that, and all the rest of it. So that is what her role is, and she will therefore get up to that point, and then that's her done. She already has lived beyond her natural lifetime, so it makes sense, as happened on the show. She kind of pulls off the magical item that is keeping her young, and she dies. That, it probably won't be exactly the same, but the feel of that, I think, is going to be the same. Is that she's not there going to be assassinated by somebody, killed by anyone like that. She will reach the point at which her whole and sole purpose for living has gone, and then she can just end it. She can just stop the thing that has been keeping her alive. In the same way that Beric basically said, that's it, I've had enough now. I should be dead. I'm going to be dead. I'm going to pass this on. I don't think Melisandre is necessarily going to pass it on to somebody else, but I think that she will also give up on things once she has achieved everything that she needs to achieve. Let's have a quick check through the chat. We've got Andrew Kay saying, a lot of the ancient myth kings have crazy long reigns, like Garth and the Storm King and the Grey King, etc. Yeah, they did. These are legends. George R. R. Martin has created a lot of legends in his world, and he's always been very clear that we shouldn't necessarily take them literally. Perhaps in some cases what we hear is true, but we shouldn't necessarily take them as being absolutely true. Quick question from Mokalolo 1928, thank you so much, saying yes, I'm late, but finally catching one live. You are late. I'm goodly part of the way through this, actually. Thank you, Robert, for such an amazing and in-depth videos. Thank you. I hugely appreciate that. Lady Pushkin's saying, can you do a video on George R.R. Martin, his writing style, use of symbolism, numbers, colors, foreshadowing, etc.? How clever he is. Yeah, I would love to do that at some point. That's a good video to be doing. I kind of pick up on it in a lot of my different videos, sort of explaining bits of his writing, but I haven't done one just on what George R.R. Martin's writing style is. So yeah, that's a good idea. Rosie says she lives for her mission, so after it is complete, she will find release in death. Yeah, that's kind of the feel for Melisandre that I think we're going to go with this one. I think, and with that, I am going to start pulling this one to a close. If you are watching this back a little bit later, then somewhere up around here will be appearing a link very soon to some of my other live streams that I've been doing. If you're interested in those, somewhere around here will be appearing a link to my Patreon page. If you'd like to either support this channel or get access to some of the benefits that I do just for my patrons, they, as you've seen, I frame these live streams around the questions I get from my patrons. That's just one of the benefits I do for them. So if you're interested in that, then it will be appearing somewhere around here. Okay, guys, I'll be back next week. I think next week I will do Brienne in the Winds of Winter. So if you're at all interested in that, please do check that one out. Take care, everyone. This has been a fantastic chat, some fantastic questions. Take care, and I will see you again next week.